Girivaradari Upiganavallava Girivaradari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yamunatira Banachari Iravanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Gopi Janabalaba Giridharadari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Jaya Radha Madhava Gabi Hari Shri Radha Madhava Astasaki Kija. Okay, so here we are. And I guess we can begin. Can you hear us okay? Hello, hello.
Yes, Maharaj.
Oh, okay. And then I want to go to push the, I guess I do this. Yeah, I minimize that. Okay, then I go close this, and I go to PowerPoint, but I need oh, there we go, yeah. I need to share. There's my share switch. Okay, then share. Okay.
Yes, yes.
I have by Control Alt, no, Shift Control Alt H. There we go. Okay. Okay. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoy Beyakuti Kabehama Bujabo Se Yugala Piriti. When I become eager to study the literature of the six Goswamis, then I will be able to understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So for that purpose, Rupa Goswami has given us Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Okay. And here's our PowerPoint show. Okay. The Nectar of Instruction is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Good. ISKCON Pakistan. Anjana Sudha Academy, Hanumat Presaka Swami Bhaktivedanta. And again, this is first instructions for neophyte devotees. And it is also a summary of Nectar of Devotion, the complete science of Bhakti Yoga. Okay. And again, we can sing. Maybe we've memorized this by now. I'll sing and then somebody else, one person can respond, and everybody else can sing with your microphones closed. That way we won't confuse the robot. Oh, hey, Vaishnava Thakura, Dwayar Sagar, Edase Koruna Kori.
Hey Vaishnava Chakara Dayara Sagara Hidashe Koruna Kari.
Diya Padachaya Shodoheya Maya Tomara Charana Dori.
Diya Padachaya Shuddha Hai Maya Tomara Charana Dhur.
Chaya Vega Domi Chaya Dosha Shodhi Chaya Guna Deho Dasi.
Chaya Veda Domi Chaya Dosha Shuddhe Chaya Guna Devadashe.
Chaya Sata Sangha Deho Amare Mose Chi Sangera
Chaya Sutta Sangam Dehoya Maya Dosechi Sangirasi.
Ekaki Amara Nahi Payabala Harinama Sankirtane.
Ekaki Amaram Nahi Paya Bala Harinama Sankirtane.
Tumi Kripa Kori Shradubindu Diya Deho Krishna Namadane.
Tumi Kripa Kari Shraddha Brindu Diya Deha Krishna Namadane.
Krishna Shaito Maharan Krishna Dite Paro Kumara Shloka
Krishna se Tomara Krishna Dite Paro Tumara Shakati Ache.
Amito Ganga Krishna Krishna Bori Laita Pache Pache.
Amito Kanga Krishna Krishna Bole Jai Tava Pache Pache.
So in this spirit, for the first week of our symposium, we did the texts 1, 2, and 3. Of course, text one is Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam. It's the 6 pushes. The tongue to speak, the mind and anger, the tongue to taste, and the belly and genitals. And if we qualify these, then we can give our association as preceptor, to the whole world. Okay. And we have to avoid, and then number two talks about things that will make it difficult, which includes associating with worldly minded people. And number 3 talks about 6 things that will make it easy, especially enthusiasm, and avoiding worldly minded people. So then 4, 5, and 6 go into detail about association. And that's been this week. Of course, number 4 is 6 ways to associate with people. Yeah. Giving and receiving food, giving and receiving gifts. Yeah. And especially talking confidentially with people. Okay. The number 5 then talks about how to apply that with devotees. And it points out that there are 3 kinds of devotees: Kanista Adhikari, Majjhima Adhikari, Uttama Adhikari. And it especially was talking about the Majjhima Adhikari yesterday in verse number 5. All it said about the Kanista Adhikari basically was they have material motives and we should not stay on that platform. And then it talks about how the Majjhima Adhikari, how we advance to that platform through Diksha, these processes. Okay. And then it goes to today, text number 6, which is the Uttama Adhikari, identifying them, how to associate with them. Then next week, our last week, the last 1/3, we'll go through 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think we can do it. And that goes back to the process, Harinama Sankirtane. And in the song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes on up to text number 6. But then he says, I cannot do Harinam Sankirtan. I can get everything just by chanting the holy names, but I can't do it without your association. So association is more essential than the process. Okay. Text number 1, text number 2, text number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 5 yesterday, and today number 6. Okay, so first I chant, and you listen, then you chant, and I listen. Dristai swabhava janatair vapusascha doshair.
Dristai swabhava janatair vapusascha doshair.
Na prakritattvamiha bhakta janasya pasyat.
Napati tattamiya bhakta janasya pasyat.
Gangam basam nakulu budbuddha penapankaya.
Gangam basam nakulu budbuddha penapankaya.
Brahma drabatvam apagachati niradharmai.
Amma vastam apagachati niradharmai.
Okay. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. And here for the graphic we have Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And we have so much biography, so much very, very authentic biographical material about them, you know, so we can actually understand their character and how they were transcendental. You know, this is basically our whole process, that we have such a nice access to Uttama Adhikari. And I guess maybe we'll just go into the text because there's nice points to discuss here. So let me go ahead there and change to, there it is. Okay, I6. Dristai swabhava janatayar vapushash chadoshayar na prakritat vamiha bhakta janasya pasyat gangam bhasam nakulu budbuddha penapankar Rama Dalatam Apagashati Niradharmai. Okay. And Prabhupada starts off by talking about Shuddha Bhakti. Yeah, because we're talking now about the Uttama Adhikari. So Uttama Adhikari is defined by Shuddha Bhakti. Shuddha Bhakti, the activity of the soul proper. In other words, engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is performed in a liberated condition. In Bhagavad Gita 14:26, it is said, Mam chayo vyacharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatichaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So I closed my eyes when I was doing that to see if it would refresh it. And again, this is an essential verse. Mam chayo avya bicharene bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatichaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who, Krishna tells Arjuna, one who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So we're talking about this. One of the essential things in all these verses is the point about fall down, and well, once one becomes a Majjhimadhikari, he doesn't fall down. Once it becomes Uttamadhikari, doesn't fall down. Well, why are so many devotees in ISKCON falling down? That must mean that nobody is on the Majjhimadhikari platform. So these are very practical questions that keep coming up. But here it says Abhicharena Bhakti, and it comes and thus comes to the level of Brahman. So, Kanista Adhikari. So one time I remember hearing Prabhupada saying there are first, second, and third class pure devotees. Then he said, well, actually the third class pure devotees are not pure devotees. Yeah, yeah. So second class pure devotee, we're discussing that yesterday, take an initiation from bona fide spiritual master and engaged in worshiping the deity. So what we call second initiation, you know. And we're explaining that, you know, fully engaged. Because if you're a pujari and you're actually doing the full service for the deities, you have to be up in the morning by maybe 3:30, 3:45, something like that. And then you go on the altar at 4 o'clock, wake up the deities, offer their Mangal Artik Boga, prepare the Artik trays, you know, prepare the plates in the morning. Then you do the Artik, and after that, the curtains close. And if you've been on a regular big altar, and the times the curtain closes at 4:30 until 6:45 when it's time for the offering, you really don't breathe. You hear everybody coming off the altar. Maybe if you have a big altar, there'll be 3 altars and there'll be at least 3 pujaris, probably more. So it's when everybody comes off the altar, you know, it's trying to get things done at the last minute because you have to pull back all of these small shells in front with the pictures of the acharyas on, the small deities. Then you have to take off all the other clothes and put them aside. Then you have to bathe the deities, or you get to bathe the deities. And that's a whole very sophisticated, beautiful process, very intense, very intimate. Okay. Then you have to dry them, rub them with oils, dress them. Then you have to arrange the dress, pin it up, and it doesn't look right, so you have to do it another way like that. And all the time you're looking at the clock, and all the time you keep chanting, you know, because when you're on the altar, you're you know that's not deity worship is not the process for Kali Yuga. It's the process for Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. Okay, yeah. And so, yeah, when you're on the altar, and in the Kali Yuga, if you think a bad thought about people, there's no effect. But what you pujari, you notice as soon as you think something bad about somebody, you'll hit your leg on the altar or stick a pin through your finger. Yeah, now you're a chance to serve Krishna on a very intimate level, but the reactions are there too. You know? Same as when you go to Vrindavan, if you have sense gratification or things like that in Vrindavan, there's an intense reaction immediately. Yeah, be careful. So you come off, okay, you get a breath, but then you have to arrange the artik paraphernalia and take the offering off and go back on and do the Shringa artik. So in this way, you know, you're fully engaged all the way until 10 o'clock at night. And you take rest, and of course you dream about the deities. So, and of course somebody else, maybe they don't do Sankirtan during the day. They go out doing shopping, administration, you know, to go door to door, go in the streets selling books, you know. But actually we're fully engaged, you know. And at that point, you may notice that, of course, there's different levels of second initiation. Adoshwada Sadhusanga Bhajana Kriya starts there. But after that, Bhajana Kriya and Arta Nivritti, all the bad habits start diminishing. Nishta, you become very fixed in doing your service on time, all of it, you know. And all the way up to Saktis, where, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of physical distress, if you're being eaten alive by wild dogs or burned to death by atheists or whatever it is, no longer you're attached to Krishna. Yeah, yeah. And then Baba Bhakti starts, the next level, which is described in great detail in the southern part of the Nectar of Devotion. Yeah. So you don't fall down in any circumstance because there's no time to fall down. Of course, again, there are different levels of intensity and continuity and all these kinds of things like that. Yeah, yeah. Okay. And so you then you can do devotional service in the transcendental platform. Yeah. How's it go? It says, Nikunja Juno Rati Keli Sedai Yoyoli Bir Yuktira Pekshin. Yeah, no.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Nikunja Juno Rati Keli Sedai Yoyoli Bir. Yeah. Okay. That the spiritual master is engaged in the confidential service of Radha and Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan. This is the 5th verse in the Gravastika. So when Prabhupada was commenting on this, I think it was in London, he made a comment about all the verses, but when he came to this one, he made no comments. the spiritual master is engaged in the confidential service of Radha and Krishna with the gopis in Vrindavan. And he said, that is the prerogative of Narottam Das Thakur. He can do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, there are different levels of spiritual masters, different levels of pure devotees. But also, in a practical sense, the spiritual, even a brahmana, myself, I was a brahmachari, and I was going on the altar, had pujari sometimes in San Francisco, and that's where Prabhupada's original Jagannath deities are. 1.5 meter tall Gornatai, small Gornatai. We're traveling with the Radha Damodar bus party, and Radha Gokulananda, and they're good size. There were 3 sets made from the same mold: Radha Gokulananda in Berkeley, Radha Madhava in Mayapur, and I think it's Radha Gopijana Vallabha in Boston. And Krishna has a little more silver color than Radha, so very, very nice, serving them. But the thing is, Radharani is not wearing a top cloth. Okay, this is a little confidential talk here. Yeah, and so you can imagine what it's like being a brahmachari, having to bathe Radha and Krishna and rub scented oils in their bodies, and here Radharani hasn't got a top cloth on. Okay, so you have to be able to, be transcendental. You imagine, okay, I'm a my mother Yashoda, serving a mother Yashoda, and Radharani is a little girl. Yeah, and so you can do it. You are doing confidential service in the groves of Vrindavan. It's on the level with the deities, but that's still it's something very practical and stuff. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Yeah. Mam Shayu Abhicharina. Abhicharini Bhakti means unalloyed devotion. A person engaged in devotional service must be free from material motives. In this Krishna consciousness movement, one's consciousness must be changed. If consciousness is aimed towards material enjoyment, it is material consciousness. If it is aimed towards serving Krishna, it is Krishna consciousness. A surrendered soul serves Krishna without material considerations. Anyabilasita shunyam jnana karmadi anavritam. And of course, this is the something or other, stotra of the Nectar of Devotion. Yeah, the fundamental key verse. Yeah. And it's 1.1.11. Easy to remember. Yeah. And it was quoted, of course, earlier like that. And if you hear it again and again, it's something you have to memorize and take to heart. Unalloyed devotional service, which is transcendental to the activities of the body and mind, such as jnana, mental speculation, and karma, fruitive work is called bhakti yoga. Okay. Bhakti yoga is the proper activity of the soul. And when one actually engages in unalloyed, uncontaminated devotional service, he is already liberated. Sagunan samati chaitanya. Krishna's devotee is not subjected to material conditions, even though his bodily features may appear conditioned. Okay. So this is one point I was remembering here when I was becoming a devotee, becoming a member, follower of Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Gaudiya Vaishnava culture. Because I was a devotee before. I was Christian, and as a child, I really wanted to go to church, do different austerities to get there and stuff. Yeah. But then when I was becoming a devotee, of course, then we were offering boga to the deities in the temple. The pujaris would offer to Krishna, and it was supposed to be transcendental. Same problem, same consideration there as in Christianity, because they offer bread and wine, and that wine is not 10% alcohol. That's not supposed to be. If you take grapes in a natural condition and squeeze them, you get grape juice. If you leave them, they'll turn to vinegar, which you can't eat. It's like milk. Milk will turn, you can't eat it. So you put a little bit of starter in the milk and it becomes yogurt. The same way you take the grape juice and it becomes about maybe 1% or 2% alcohol, which is very mild, like that. So anyway, they were offering the bread, and Jesus Christ said, take this bread, which is my body, I give it to you. This is the wine, which is my blood, I give it to you, like that, and so on. So there's an argument in the Catholic Church, and it's called transubstantiation or trans something or other else, because one people say that the bread and the wine then become sanctified, they become symbols, very special symbols like that. And the other group says, no, that they actually become transubstantiation, they become a different substance. So in the history of Christianity with the Catholic Church, people wanted to separate from the church in Rome. So Martin Luther separated and started all the Lutherans, which is still a very powerful Christian organization. And then Calvin started the Calvinists, and they're still here as the Presbyterian Church, like that. And they both had a lot of common ideas about what had gone wrong with the Catholic Church and everything else. They were supported by the princes in Germany of different countries, so they doing well. And Calvin was younger than Martin Luther. And in the end, the reason they couldn't agree on everything was because of this point. They had a different idea about what happened to the bread and the wine. And it wasn't enough for them to fight about anything, but they just couldn't make one powerful together movement. So Martin Luther was older, so he sent somebody to talk with Calvin, and they came back, and they couldn't quite agree on that, so they didn't make one powerful church. But then years later, Martin Luther understood what Calvin was actually saying, and his representative kind of misunderstood. And he said, I could have lived with that. Yeah. So it's a very important point. We said the same thing. Prasadam is what is it? Is it a symbol, or has it actually become something else? So I was wondering this, and I wasn't initiated at all. I was living in Sacramento, about an hour and a half from the temple in San Francisco. So somehow or other, I had the opportunity to go down to Los Angeles. And when I was there, I went to the temple. And my first time going to the temple, maybe Prabhupada was there. Maybe the first time I saw Prabhupada, maybe I saw him before that at Rath Yatra in San Francisco. In the morning lecture, the Bhagavatam class, there's about maybe 150 people there. And so I was looking at Prabhupada, and he was talking, and he would raise his hand or something to emphasize something. And then I could see, just like I have I find a very, very beautiful diamond in the earth, and I pull it out, and it's rough, and it could be 3 times the size of my hand in length, and oh my God, I'm rich. My whole village is rich. Yeah. So I start running back, and I'm crossing a stream of water, and it falls in the water, and the water is splashing. There are rocks, everything else. So I can't see it. It looks the same as the water. So what do? I start feeling for it. Yeah, because it feels completely different. So that's what I saw. I could see that the modes of nature were coming to Prabhupada, and then they were just going around him. Somebody told me, he said, when Prabhupada's lecturing, if ever he talks about the material scientists, he'll brush his nose like it's a bad sell, the material scientists, like that. So yeah, they asked Prabhupada one time, when you touch a doorknob, does it become transcendental? And Prabhupada said, they say, as long as I'm touching it. Yeah. So Krishna gives the pure devotee, his servants, a different level of influence. And sometimes he doesn't want them to be influencing things, so it gets withdrawn. Other times it can go out, for extreme distance. I was at the Rath Yatra in San Francisco, only Rath Yatras in the world. At one point, Prabhupada stood up, and there was a camera going behind him that showed all the people there chanting. And I think he raised his hands or he threw some flowers, and you could see the wave. You could see the wave going right through the crowd, everybody going back, and Prabhupada raised his hands. So not subjected to material conditions. Okay, one should therefore not see a pure devotee from a materialistic point of view. Now, the next is also very important. Unless one is actually a devotee, he cannot see another devotee perfectly. Okay. So if you become a higher Madhyama Adhikari, then you can begin to see things in the Uttama Adhikari. You may not perfectly, but you can see them very practically. And a Kanista Adhikari who's sincere and wants to advance, when they come into the temple, they recognize the temple is a special place. And many, many times when they see Prabhupada's Murti, or they saw Prabhupada, they understand. You know, Prabhupada says Kanista Adhikari can bow down to God and the Acharya. The Acharya. So Christians, they worship Jehovah and Jesus. Mohammedans worship Allah and Muhammad. Yeah, yeah. So Buddhists, they worship nothing and Buddha. Yeah, yeah. So this is very common. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Krishna Balaram. Yeah. And after understanding God, then we begin to appreciate, an acharya. Okay. Unless one is actually a devotee, he cannot see another devotee perfectly. Yeah. As explained in the previous verse, there are three types of devotees: Kanista Adhikari, Majjhima Adhikari, and Uttama Adhikari. The Kanista Adhikari cannot distinguish between a devotee and a non-devotee. He is simply concerned with worshiping the deity in the temple. Again, I think I mentioned it before. I was coming up from our temple in Berkeley, San Francisco, walking up Telegraph Avenue, which is 4 lanes, and all these bookstores, and it's a very, very active scene on the edge of the campus, people coming and going. And I was going to walk across the campus to go to the other side for some banking. And I saw a young guy there, and immediately I felt he was a devotee. When two thieves meet upon the road, they need no introduction. They know each other by sight. Okay. So I said, Hare Krishna. We were both in civil dress. And he said, Hallelujah. Yeah. And he was just some young guy who just took off, depending upon Jesus and traveling all over the United States and, and preaching with his Bible and stuff. And he was having a very, very wonderful experience. So he was there in Berkeley for a few days, and I saw him again on the streets, and we would sit sometimes and talk. And he showed me many very nice things from the Bible culture, which agreed completely, with our principles. And so he was a Majjhima Adhikari. He was following. He'd been baptized, like that. And then we recognized each other. Yeah. But somebody who's a Kanista Adhikari, all they can see is in whatever their religion is, whatever is their deity, that's all they can see. And they can't tell, okay, this is a devotee. It doesn't matter whether he dresses the way we do or these kind of things. A Majjhima Adhikari, however, can distinguish between devotee and non-devotee, as well as between the devotee and the Lord. Thus, he treats the Supreme Personality of Godhead, okay, the devotee and the non-devotee in different ways. This is the third time that Prabhupada has mentioned this verse. He gave us the actual Sanskrit, and he's mentioned it 3 times. Very important concept. This is Majjhima Adhikari. Okay. And now then Prabhupada goes back to the same thing about how to relate to these different people. No one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service. Pure service to the Supreme Lord, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 9:30. Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhu eva samantavyaha samyag vyabhisito hi saha. Okay. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. Okay. So this is very important in terms of understanding. Again, after Prabhupada left, people over enthusiastic, and everybody tried to be okay. The only way to become a guru is to become a guru like Prabhupada. So everybody was becoming, was Hari Kirtan Pod, Guru Pod. Well, we got Vishnu Pod. Everybody had to have a pod in there. Yeah. The FBI was becoming confused. We had our civil names, we had our initiated names, we had our sannyas names. And they were saying, you people are, that's a problem. Yeah. And you never answer your phones. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But then some of them, they were. We can go through. I was with Hansa Dutta. He came to Berkeley, and after Prabhupada left, and it was a very, very, what's the word? Powerful time. Bhakti yoga is a part of your social life, your daily life. Bhakti yoga is part of the things you can touch. Astanga yoga, jnana yoga, you got to go on the mental platform, think about things, understand them, or take yourself out of the body. Yeah. Yeah. But bhakti yoga, if you've got a little bit of faith in God and this, then it can catch you right in your ordinary life. You can just take it up right away. So anyway, when Hansuduta came to Berkeley, oh, it was such a gigantic circus. I was brahmachari, I was the treasurer of the temple, been there some time, this and that. But it was just, again, such 5, 6 different angles like that. Pretty big temple too. It was six city lots. I guess our property here, the whole property here, like twice as big, big everything, And but then so he was there, and then everybody was, he was initiating people and all these things, and some of his disciples were telling me he can create universes, And I was thinking, well, maybe under special circumstances, yeah. And even within 1 week, 2 weeks ago, somebody told me, he said, "Oh, all you ISKCON gurus, your transcendental relationship with Krishna and Goloka. I know it. I know. I don't know. I may have hooves or or padded feet or something. I don't know. I guess. Yeah. I mean, maybe Ingaloka, maybe I'm an Ayodhya. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, there was all this, confusion about what is an Uttamadhikari, who can become guru, who can initiate, or all these kind of things. And simultaneously, yes, Hansaduta had very, very advanced qualifications. Even from his birth, he was, born into a very kind of unique position. Hansaduta and who else it is? Both of them were in Europe during World War II. He's in Hungary. Harikesh? No, Harikesh. No. Writes a lot of books. Anyway, Hansaduta's father had a big dinner club in Berlin, with shows on the stage and people coming for big dinner. And I don't think Hitler came there, but many of the chief officers were there. And he was famous pastry cook. So very high class Vaishya, very opulent. When the war came and afterwards, they were, living in some remote village, just trying to survive. And father would go out for 4 days and come back with a half full bag of some potatoes and stuff. It was, terrible, So he lived through all that, very intense program, and that developed his view of what is life and how we're supposed to deal with governments and these kind of things. So it became associated with Prabhupada. And many, many just incredible things they were doing and so on. Yeah. But then he had some problems, and this and that, and eventually he was drinking some beer and other stuff like that. So yeah, he not only was engaged in duracharo, bad habits, he was engaged in suduracharo. It's saying suduracharo, abominable activities. Yeah. Bhajate ananya bhak. This is not just an ordinary devotee. This is an ananya bhak. Even an undeviating devotee may fall into these things. Yeah, that's right here. But I was driving him around after that and doing things with him, and his lamentation was, "Oh my God, how I look at me, I cannot possibly go in front of Prabhupada now." And he was still much more Krishna conscious than I was, and so on. So that's my experience. You fall down from moral character and these kind of things, but you don't fall down from devotional service. Yeah. My own experience, I've seen so many devotees who have, fallen into different things, started smoking for some time and getting married and, having all this stuff for maybe 10, 15 years and then coming back many times. Like the Prachetas. Okay, yeah. So many stories in the Bhagavatam of fall downs. How many fall downs are there in the Bhagavatam? Yeah, big ones, small ones. That's a very, very nice work with somebody to go through and write them all down. The Bhagavatam shows us every single possible psychological circumstance. And if you read all those stories and take them to heart, you'll be able to, see everybody. And you'll be able to, deal with these things, helping yourself, other people, avoid them, and so on. So Hansadutta, I'm talking about him there. This is the example that. Oh yeah, okay. So I've seen many devotees who, morally and ethically been very Brahminical, this and that, but then some different things happening. One person, he got married, opened up a jewelry business. He was smoking maybe something every day and this and that, keep his business, do his work. But the same way, after 20 years, he just woke up to Prachetas. What happened? And okay, in many cases, So fall down from ethical and moral character, like Ajamil, but at heart, still devotees. I've known very few people. I think there's only two. I know one who very seriously, with great effort for years, actually, became a non-devotee. Another one, he was our temple president sometime, this and that, and he left, and I saw him like about 15 years later after he left, and he said, after 15 years of psychotherapy, I can now engage in sex whenever I want to with my wife without feeling guilty. It took him 15 years of psychotherapy before he could. Okay, if you want to, right? Yeah, you can do it. It's a matter of free will. Bharata Maharaj, he gave up his horse, he gave up his wife, he gave up his kingdom, he gave up being the protector of everybody. He went to the forest and was doing bhakti yoga, and he came to the level of bhava. And then he had a fall down. And the text says because of his previous karma, but in the purport Prabhupada says, no way. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhakar Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Mayar Adhikar. That verse will appear. Krishna is like the sun. Okay. Maya is like darkness, whereas the sun, there is no darkness. So when you come to the bhava level, accidental fall down is impossible. Madhyamadhikar, yes, something will hit you, something will happen, like Ajamil, and you'll fall into something. Okay, externally. But in Bhava Bhakti, it's just, no, it's apparent, it's separate, it's just, everything's clear. The only way you can fall down from Bhava Bhakti, we'll see it here, is by choice. So he consciously took the position of being the dearmost friend. Bhoktaram Yagatapasham Sarvaloka Maheshram Sugradam Sarvadayinam. I am everybody's best friend. So he took that. Oh, don't think about Krishna. I will take care of you little dear. I am your protector. I am God for you. And Krishna is saying, hey. And he says, oh no, So there was a conscious offense. Ajamil was not offensive. Ajamil was sinful. But he wasn't offensive. Whereas Bharata Maharaj, he wasn't exactly simple, but he was offensive. And then Krishna gave him a little slap, and he said, "Oh yeah, forgive me." I became a deer, and oh my, I did such a stupid thing, So he very quickly was rectified. So we'll go ahead and we'll read this. Okay. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord, as a madhyama or uttamadhikari. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. Okay. Even though a pure devotee may not be born in a Brahmin family, which is most of us, or a Goswami family, if he is engaged in the service of the Lord, he should not be neglected. So probably becoming very practical now. In actuality, there cannot be a family of Goswamis based on material considerations, caste, or heredity. The Goswami title is actually the monopoly of the pure devotees. Thus we speak of the 6 Goswamis headed by Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami had practically become Mohammedans, and they had therefore changed their names to Dabir Kas and Sakar Malik. Sanatan Goswami matches with the S. He was Sakar Malik. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself made them Goswamis. Therefore, the Goswami title is not hereditary. The word Goswami refers to one who can control his senses, who is the master of the senses. The devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is the controller of the senses. Consequently, he should be called Swami or Goswami, even though he may not be born in a Goswami family. Okay. According to this formula, the Goswamis, who are descendants of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, according to this formula, the Goswamis, who are descendants of Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu, are certainly devotees. Now, all of these things that Prabhupada is mentioning here are not very relevant to preaching in London or the United States or South America. These are only problems in terms of bodily identification that occur in India, and more specifically, usually Bengal and places like that. When I was in Calcutta, there was actually a temple near to us, which was Nityananda Vamsa. They said that we are descendants of Nityananda. We the Nectar of Devotion. There's more details. We are the only people who have the right to spread devotional service because we're born in these families. So Prabhupada's saying, okay, they're devotees. But devotees coming from other families should not be discriminated against. Indeed, whether the devotees come from a family of previous acharyas or from an ordinary family, they should be treated equally. No one should think, oh, here is an American Goswami and discriminate against him. Okay. Nor should one think, oh, here is a Nityananda Vamsa Goswami. There is an undercurrent of protest against our awarding the title Goswami to the American Vaishnavas of the Krishna consciousness movement. Sometimes people flatly tell the American devotees that their sannyas or title of Gonaswami is not bona fide. However, according to the statements of Srila Rupa Goswami in this verse, an American Goswami and a Goswami in a family of acharyas are non-different. Okay. On the other hand, a devotee who has attained the title of Goswami but is not born of a Brahmin father or a Goswami family of Nityananda or Advaita should not be artificially puffed up by thinking he has become a Goswami. He should always remember that as soon as he becomes materially puffed up, he immediately falls down. This Krishna consciousness movement is a transcendental science, and there is no room for jealousy. This movement is meant for the Paramahamsas who are completely free from all jealousy. Paramam Nirmatsuranam. That's the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. One should not be jealous whether he is born in a family of Goswamis or has the title of Goswami awarded to him. And now here's a very important line. As soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls from the platform of Paramahamsa. So yeah, a Paramahamsa can fall down. Yeah. There's a big thing about the origin of the jiva. ISKCON was separating, fighting over it. One argument common is that we had no developed relationship with Krishna. We were in Mahavishnu Loka, and then we had we were Sayuja Mukti, impersonal liberation, and then we came into the material world. Okay, and once you go back and develop your relationship in Sakya-ras, Dasya-ras, then you can never fall down. You know, nobody can fall from Goloka. It was the whole thing. Yeah. Okay. But here it's saying Paramahamsa. Paramahamsa can fall down because we have free will. Well, okay, how can you fall down when you're experiencing so much bliss? Well, this is the drug addict argument. Okay, you're experiencing so much pleasure, you don't have a choice. Well, that's also no free will. No free will. Whether you're staying in spiritual world because you're not given any experience of the material world, or whether you're afraid of suffering, or whether you're addicted to pleasure, in any case, there's no free will. Okay. As long as there's free will, we have a choice. Okay. Now this is frightening. Yeah. Vita raga bhaya krodha. Vita raga bhaya krodha. This is 410. 410. Bhagavad Gita 410. These are the four enemies of spiritual life: raga, bhaya, and krodha. I guess three enemies. Okay. So bhaya occurs, fear occurs when we realize that we have a spiritual identity and we do have free will. Yeah, right? So that means that, yeah, I can suffer. You know, I can make a choice and come back here. So we become afraid of our spiritual identity. You know, I remember specifically, I was in the Brahmacharya ashram up on the second floor of the temple, you know, leaning on my box there. And I suddenly realized, got a very liberated consciousness for a moment. Then I realized that all of my devotional service was personally motivated. I want prestige, I want fame, I want ego, all these things, you know. And that really, I did not want to leave the material world and all these things, you know. Yeah. And I realized that Krishna had given me free will and he was not going to interfere with me. And so I became very depressed because, yeah, I'm going to stay here. Yeah. And then maybe 2 days later, I was reading prayers for the personified Vedas, and it says they're waking up Vishnu, they're glorifying him, and of all his qualities, the foremost is his mercy upon reclaiming the fallen conditioned souls. Okay. When Purana Harish Chandra, when king has a case in his court, and according to Satya, truth, you know, if that's justice, you know, he should kill the person or something like that. But in terms of daya, mercy, he should forgive him. So the whole Purana is then, the story is about what is the essence of justice, Satya or daya? The essence of justice is truth or mercy. And it goes back and forth. Narada Muni and Vishwamrita get involved. And finally, after everything is over, because he wants to go towards truth, and I have to apply the truth, I have to kill the guy. But the final conclusion after all of this, he realizes, yes, the essence of justice is not truth, it's mercy. Wow. And I was realizing so in the end, Radharani is more tricky, more determined than Durga, right? Even though we don't deserve to get out of this place, we don't want to, Radharani is out to get us. But if we don't cooperate, it could be a long time. Yeah. But still, that's Krishna's ultimate mercy. So it's very, very important. But yeah, we can. So that's why Krishna finds this interesting. The gopis are full of inconceivable, unpredictable emotional states. Okay. Radharani and her friends have arranged a birthday party for Krishna. It's going to be at 12 o'clock, okay, when the cows are all chewing their cud. And they set the whole place up. They decorated. They spent 2 hours casually decorating Radharani. Okay, yeah, casually, 2 hours. Everything's all set up, and at 12 o'clock, Krishna's not there. 12:10, Krishna's not there. 12:20, Krishna's not there. The cake's starting to sag. So one Manjari runs in and says, I know where Krishna is. Where is he? He's at Chandravali's house eating birthday cake. Okay, what happens next with the gopis, with Radharani's friends? No, they could become completely, what's the word, humble, and say that just proves that Chandravali loves him more than we do, and you know, this proves our faults and everything else. And so that's it. Krishna doesn't know, they don't know. They're full of inconceivable, unlimited, unpredictable. And the jivas also. We don't know our abilities in the spiritual world. We're still discovering them. Krishna doesn't know. Yeah. And so therefore, if we don't have free will, there's nothing going to happen. Yeah. So we do have free will. And Krishna knows that we're doing things because we want to do it. We personally have decided to do this and that. Not because he's giving us bliss. not because we're afraid of this or that, not because we're being hidden from all these kind of temptations. No, he knows. Yeah. So that's why it's very, very, what's the word? Like when you begin to realize this, it's frightening, but at the same time too, it's very ennobling. Realize I have real responsibility. In the Battle of Kurukshetra, before it started, Krishna told Arjuna, look, everybody knows, I said, I'm sorry, so I'm going to have to tell you that what we're going to face is my own dark side. What we're going to have to face is Kali Yuga. This is my own negative aspect. And you can't imagine how evil it's going to become. I've taken a vow not to take any weapons. So in the end, it's going to depend upon you. I'm depending on, can you do this? And Arjuna says, yes, I won't fail you. And he goes through so many problems. But one day he comes home after the battle to the camp. And every day Abhimanyu comes out with his shoes to receive his father. And Abhimanyu is not there. So Arjuna starts looking at everybody, the soldiers, and they're all like, looking away, and the whole place is gray. He goes into the tent, Bhima's there, everybody's there, and they're all like this and that. Because they sent Abhimanyu into the Chakravyuha, and they promised they would protect him, and they couldn't do it, and he died, And Arjuna's figured out what's happening, and he's just trying to deny it. So that's it. It's too much. Abhimanyu was such a dear son, and his heart's he's fallen apart, and just can't go on now. I can't fight him anymore. So in the Mahabharata, then Krishna says, I told you this is what's going to happen. You've got to just push your heart back together and go on. And fortunately, Arjuna did it. If not, this time in Kali Yuga, this universe, you would have a different result. So we have our, as soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls from the Paramahansa platform. Wow. If we consider the bodily defects, of a Vaishnava, we should understand that we are committing an offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Oh, Srila Prabhupada sick. Oh no, Srila Prabhupada doesn't get sick. Srila Prabhupada asked us to go to the Kaviraj and get this medicine. Oh no, don't do that. No. That's the difference, a distinction. We consider that it even says it, that Krishna is using the pure devotee Prabhupada to show us. One time Prabhupada was sneezing on the Vyasa-san, and he said, you are taking such good care of your spiritual master, but still I have a cold. This is the material world, everything. There are problems everywhere. But again, Narada Muni was encouraging Kamsa to, kill Devaki's babies. Whap, whap. Somebody comes and going to kill your baby. But Narada Muni comes and is encouraging to do it. Because he knew these kids have to be killed by Kamsa. And let's speed it up. So finish off this trip so that we can get Krishna here. So Uttama Adhikari, again, Bhishma, Krishna asked Bhishma in the game of dice, if they ask you to decide what is dharma and adharma, I want to promise charity that you won't say. So Bhishma said, okay, I'll give you charity. And they pulled Draupadi in there, in this terrible condition, and everybody was saying this and that, and Dhritarashtra said, okay, I'll let her go if Bhishma says it's adharma, right? And Bhishma was just about ready to say, you morons, you're dragging this girl away from her father's family into this public assembly like this, you idiots. You're asking me it's adharma? Of course it's adharma. He's just about to say that, then he remembers that Krishna asked me not to say. Oh my God, this is terrible. This is the end of my dynasty, but Bhagavan is playing his game. I can't say. And everybody thinks it is so fine that he says, I can't say. In the movie, one hand is about to pull the sword out to defend her, and the other hand grabs it, the blade, and the blood's coming out. Really good. So he had so much appreciation that Krishna is in control. Sudarachara, it may appear abominable, but in the end, it's got something extremely proper here. If we consider, we should understand we are committing offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Indeed, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described this offense as Hati Mata, the mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can create a disaster, especially when it enters into a nicely trimmed garden. Being a very advanced devotee, all your paraphernalia is correct, your service is correct. Okay. One should therefore be very careful not to commit an offense against the Vaishnava. Every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior Vaishnava. A superior Vaishnava must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnava in all respects. One is superior or inferior according to his spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. One is forbidden to observe the activities of a pure Vaishnava from a material point of view. For the neophyte especially, considering a pure devotee from a material point of view is very injurious. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So again, we see Prabhupada like that. Okay, but internally, how is he engaged? Is he a cowherd boy? Is he a gopi? What is his, so many begin to see what is his mood in Sankirtan. In this way, one can avoid seeing the pure devotee from a material point of view, and thus one can gradually become a purified devotee himself. And now Prabhupada's going to go, he's had bodily defects, everything else. In this next section, he talks about how Krishna consciousness is limited to different sects and all these kind of things and nations and all these kind of problems. Okay, and such people, they can't appreciate for the Mahabhagavad. Okay, so I'll read it. Okay, those who think that Krishna consciousness is limited to a certain section of a people, a certain section of devotees, or a certain tract of land are generally prone to see the external features of the devotee. Such neophytes, unable to appreciate the exalted service of the advanced devotee, try to bring the Mahabhagavata to their platform. We experience such difficulty in propagating this Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by neophyte God brothers who do not appreciate the extraordinary activities of spreading the Krishna consciousness all over the world. It doesn't mean that all of Prabhupada's God brothers were neophyte, but there was enough to surround them. They simply try to bring us to their platform. They try to criticize us in every respect. So the story is that Prabhupada's God brothers, who were criticizing him and ISKCON and what was happening, giving Brahman initiation, doing these things, they went to Sridhar Maharaj, a very senior devotee amongst all of them, and they said, Swamiji is doing this and this. And Swamiji said that he's leading the orchestra, and all we're doing is playing the bell in his orchestra, like that. And Sridhar Maharaj said, oh, Swamiji is letting us play the bell in his orchestra. That is very generous of him. Like that. So an empowered person who is actually engaged in the confidential service of the Lord should not be treated as an ordinary human being. Now, is Prabhupada thinking about himself, or is he thinking about Bhaktisiddhanta when he says this? Ford has stated that unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot spread the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. So in Bhakti Shastra, you don't have to know it. In Bhakti Vaibhava, you should know it exists. But in Bhakti Vedanta, you should probably know the exact Bengali that Prabhupada is paraphrasing here. We'll go on studying this book deeper and deeper. When one thus criticizes the pure devotee, he commits an offense, Vaishnava Parab, that is very obstructive and dangerous for those desiring to advance in Krishna consciousness. A person cannot derive any spiritual benefit when he offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Everyone should therefore be very careful not to be jealous of an empowered Vaishnava or Shuddha Vaishnava. Okay. So Prabhupada says these things can occur. We're conditioned souls, but we should correct that mentality, not let it go on developing and enjoying feeling ourselves superior. It is also an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. it is offensive to try and give him advice or correct him. One can distinguish between a neophyte Vaishnava and an advanced Vaishnava by their activities. The advanced Vaishnava is always situated as the spiritual master, and the neophyte is always considered his disciple. The spiritual master must not be subjected to the advice of a disciple, nor should a spiritual master be obliged to take instructions from those who are not his disciples. This is the sum and substance of Rupa Goswami's advice in this 6th verse. So hopefully, again, we're pointing out that Kanista Adhikari and Madhyama Adhikari can take disciples. One place Prabhupada defines disciple, said anybody who follows the discipline of somebody else is their disciple. So if we're following, somebody's discipline of going to the Sunday feast and smoking a lot of marijuana with your, I know people, one mission to temple, guy told me that maybe about 5 or 6 of them for many, many years, they get together and, and smoke marijuana before they go to the Sunday feast. And they sing and they dance and eat prasadam and scream and yell and everything else. And afterwards, they let all the devotees go take bed and they clean the temple. And they've been doing this for many years. Yeah. But Santa Teresa of Avila, in her description of devotional service, describes the stage. It's a stage you can get caught up on, right? Where you can stay there for years. So what is it? Kanista Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, on their level, they can take disciples. They can get them to come to the Sunday feast every Sunday. It's better than going to a bar or racetrack or something weird. Okay, yeah. But then everyone should accept an Uttama Adhikari as a spiritual master. That's the last paragraph of the verse before this. So but when I'm initiating anybody, I'm initiating on behalf of Srila Prabhupada, the Parampara, the standard like that. And I'm the Diksha Guru because I'm initiating according to the rituals. So and so many. One lecture, Prabhupada said, what he says, what did he say? One should only accept Uttama Adhikari as spiritual master. Okay. Then a little while later in the lecture, he says, I have never claimed to be Uttama Adhikari. At the end of the lecture, he says, if you engage in devotional service, all these things will become clear. And they do, understanding what is Guru Tattva. So, see, that's very, very practical. Again, one other thing. Prabhupada said, when we're leading a body, don't change anything. How should we initiate? What should we do? Don't change anything. Keep the system I've given. When Prabhupada was here, they would send all the beads to Japan where Prabhupada was so he could chant on them and give them names. Okay. But when the beads got to Japan, Prabhupada had left for Delhi. So they forwarded the beads to Delhi. Prabhupada had left and gone to Germany. Yeah. So then Prabhupada appointed, I think it was Brahmananda, Jayatirtha, Bhagavan, maybe like 5 people. I think all of them later were on the list like that they could chant on the beads. And the names would come to him by post or something like that, and he would take care of that. So, as far as I know, Jayatirtha chanted on my beads. Prabhupada never met me personally. He initiated me because of the recommendation of my temple president. What else we got? That's about it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So who? Oh yeah. And as far as I know, Nitai picked my name out. There's in my initiation, there's about 3 names that all come from Ram Leela. So it looks like somebody was looking at the Rama Sahasranam when they were picking them out. Yeah. So who am I initiated by? Yeah, same thing can go on right now, the same way. Temple president or somebody recommending, somebody is initiating, and everybody's different. How they're filling the jobs in and doing the things. Yeah, but that's fine. That's actually the only reason I really started initiating ultimately, because I felt, and later on many people too, that anybody who's a Diksha Guru automatically has to be a Sampradaya Acharya. Between Narottam Das Thakur and Vishwanath Chakravarti in our Sampradaya list, which comes from Bhaktisiddhanta, far as I know. There's a song he wrote which describes it. Between Narottam and Vishwanath Chakravarti, I think it's 3 generations of Chakravartis who are not on the list. It doesn't mean they were demons or devils, but they weren't Sampradaya acharyas. So when Vishwanath Chakravarti showed up and started explaining what, these things meant and what Narottam meant, oh yeah, well, that's what you're right. That must be what he means. So he was initiated properly. They're all saying, hey, you go, to Narottam, and you have through us, now, and you have your Uttamadhikar relationship with him. So it's very, very, very practical. That's the main thing. My Diksha guru, if I'm taking second initiation, should be somebody who's been following the standard of second initiation for some particular time and who's not trying to separate me from Prabhupada. Everything he's doing is right, trying to connect me to Prabhupada. So that's kind of a little summary here. Let's go ahead then and look at. I got to hit the escape button. Okay, escape button, and here we have. So anybody has any questions or comments, you can post them in the chat, or else you can just raise your electronic hand. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Everybody is thunderstruck and dumbfounded. Everybody is quiet like the birds on the telephone wires at the end of the day. What time is it? We're doing pretty well. Yeah. Yeah.
Maharaj, actually on Friday we have the Friday feast. So many devotees I went there. That's why many devotees are not here today.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Very nice.
It's pretty hard to.
Okay, now somebody here has a question, so we'll answer the question here. Balabhandradas. Yeah.
So it's just kind of difficult to fathom that a Paramahamsa can fall down.
So he says it's kind of difficult to fathom that a Paramahamsa can fall down.
Yeah, but we never heard. It's not a statement you hear every day.
So Paramahamsa cannot have an accidental fall down.
So
but by choice, just choosing, this is how we got here in the first place. We got free will. You choosing, you want to, it's inconceivable that children would want to dress up like adults and have a tea party.
No.
Yeah, it's just natural. Everybody wants to try. And for the adults, it's also fun too. Adults like to set up the tea party and I'll be mommy, I'll be daddy, I'll be uncle so-and-so, I'll be aunt so-and-so, and they have their tea, which is not really tea and stuff, And then for the adults, it's fun. It's fun. It's for some time, but after a while, the children get tired of this. This is not our position. They want out, And then you see them, that the children know a lot more about what the adults are doing than you thought the children knew. And some of the things, the children know some things about what the adults are doing that the adults didn't know what the adults were doing. So, so it says that Krishna, he enjoys the material world, but it's what it is. It's just that, the kids like to dress up and act like the adults sometimes. Yeah. So from that point of view, it's not even bad. It's not offensive. The offense is like, from Krishna's point of view, everything is fine. Krishna cannot see darkness. I heard this from Prabhupada's lips. Krishna is like, he can't look at the back of his hand like, whoa. No, it's like every place Krishna looks is light, goodness, happiness, fun. Yeah. Only when we turn our back on Krishna, we see a shadow. Yeah. So,
but still,
yeah.
My understanding is a Paramahamsa, he knows better than to choose to fall down. So if he makes that choice, it would seem to me that Krishna has planted that in him somehow.
Because it seems like, again, it's the same thing. He knows better for his benefit. So as soon as you're making decisions on that basis, you've already fallen. As soon as you're thinking, I'm not going to go engage in Maya because I don't want to suffer. You already are. You already are in Maya. You can't. That's the whole point. Sarva karna karnam, right, Krishna? Why do we fall down? That question has no meaning. We did it. It's not, we're not being forced by pain. We're not being forced by that. We're not judging it on terms. We just decided, hey, we're as good as Krishna. Krishna's running around in Vrindavan with the cowherd boys and playing all these things. And some point, then he tries to convince them, actually, I'm God. Right? Krishna tries to convince the cowherd boys he's God. Then he shows them the Virat Roop, and they all laugh and they say, "Wow, did Nanda Maharaj show you how to do that? Can you teach us how to do that also?" Right? Then after a while, Krishna begins to doubt. Well, maybe I'm not God. Yeah, Uddhava. Uddhava's going to Vrindavan, and Krishna says, "Watch out! You're going to lose your Brahma Gyan. The gopis and everybody are so intense." And he says, "Don't worry, Krishna. I'm very strong in my Brahma Gyan." And Krishna says, even when I'm there, I become confused. But this is a good confusion, right? This is a confusion which only is integrating and happy and stuff. That Krishna's Yoga Maya, he is there. And so in Vrindavan, it's not like, not exactly offensive. It's just like, one of Krishna's energies from that point of view. Yeah. Okay. Maybe one last point here. Okay, should we stop here so everybody can go to the feast? Should we stop here?
Maharaj, there is a question. Please read it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, there's a question in the chat. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay. I just Zoom. The first thing says, Shatabdi Keso says, yes, Maharaj. Okay. Krishna says, Hare Krishna. Can you please elaborate on the matter of Mohammedans and Dabir Khas and Sakir Malik? I don't know where. Maybe you see there's so many biographies and histories, of Marari, different sources about Lord Chaitanya. And of course, we all know Chaitanya Bhagavat, which is a very big, but that usually just talks about younger pastimes. But someplace it explains that Sanatana and Rupa were very very elevated. They were very, very great Brahmins. They were beautiful, tall, and managing very big estates and many people, and very competent and very qualified. And so then Hussein Shah, the Baron, the Duke, the Earl, was seeing, okay, I want these people to be my ministers and handle this work for me. Prabhupada said both the Mohammedans and British both liked Hindus for bureaucracy administration because they weren't excessive, right? If you gave a post to a Hindu Brahmin, he would buy extra rasagulas. Okay. If you gave it to a Mohammedan, he would have three or four dancing girls. Okay. So yeah, that's why people like Indians in America now, because okay, you put them in these positions and they're not crazy or something. Okay. It's a problem also. So in any case, Hussein Shah went to them and said, okay, you become, I think, Sanat Rupa Goswami, I think, was prime minister, maybe prime minister. Another one was minister of the interior or something. And he had big empire, so many things to manage. And he just wanted to go off killing tigers and, romancing with other people's wives or whatever he was doing. And so he didn't want to handle all these administrative problems. Okay. So he said, you two become the administrators. And they said, well, we can't do that. As soon as we serve a Mohammedan, we'll lose all of our caste and everything else. He said, okay, if you don't do it, I'll kill one Brahmin every day. And they said, okay, we'll start today. Yeah. So they didn't do it because of any, and in that story, they didn't do it because of any, stupid motivation or anything else, attraction. They did it because they were forced to. And then they adopted the whole position. And Sakar Malik was Sanatana Goswami's the S matchup, and Dabir Akash Rupa Goswami. And they had adopted all these social customs and everything else. I don't know if they were eating beef or whatever was going on there like that. But in general, the high class, bodily conscious, a Brahminical community have rejected them, that you're associating too closely with these people and so on. But still, it was the point Lord Chaitanya then said they put them in the highest position of social. Prabhupada says that American ISKCON devotee who's following properly is qualified to dictate to high-class Brahmin about what is correct and not correct. So is that Bisham? Is that enough? Yeah. Okay. So then maybe we'll start again next week. We'll have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and same time. And text number, so we have 7 and 8. Now it goes back to the process. You got very clearly the association. The second thing is the process. So 7 and 8, Tanama Rupa Charitati Sukirtana Nusmito Kamina Rasana, that's number 8. Shatnama Krishna Charitati Sitapiya Vidya Patopatapta Rasanasa. So the first one talks about the process, Nama Rupa Charit. The second one starts the same way, Nama Rupa Charit. But number 7 talks about getting free from the gross world, becoming attached to Krishna. And then number 8 then starts talking about Raganuga Bhakti. Once you're liberated, then you can take up Raganuga Bhakti. And where do you do Raganuga Bhakti? In Vrindavan. In an ISKCON temple in Vrindavan. So then 9, 10, 11, they talk about what is Vrindavan. Govardhan, Radhakund, different levels like that. And then number 10 goes back to all the different kinds of association you can get, because we're talking in number 9 about, again, getting the association of Radhakund, Radharani, the gopis. And number 11 finishes off, saying that there's no question, the highest thing, Krishnasa Ochai, is Radha and Radhakund. And of course, the purport is very short. Purport says something like, Rupa Goswami says it's difficult to achieve Radhakund. Bhakti Vinod Thakur says it's difficult to achieve Radhakund. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati says it's difficult to achieve Radhakund. But by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, maybe you can do it. So that's the purport. So that's if you can read all of those, it's nice. And then we'll start and break them down and look at them. And again, every single thing in this Upadeshamrita is just, you cannot find, it's as high class scripture as you can get. Not saying there aren't other things that are also high class, but it's just not just like, it's a minor book, it's a small book or something else. No, it's on the level of Shikshastika. So thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you.